Hello, wonderful students. You're welcome to my class, the class of productivity development in this Scholars Chamber of Commerce and Industry in partnership with the Skills Development Council of Canada. So the class is productivity development. So in case you are joining us for the first time, this is a class where we teach a simple guide on how you can increase your personal or corporate achievement with very little effort. And today we will be doing a kind of summary to our manual. This is the complete manual for the productivity development class. But in case you are joining us offline, if you follow this class from the beginning to the end within these few minutes, you would have covered the entire book and you will be qualified to be awarded the diploma in productivity development from the Skills Development Council of Canada. And of course, you know that the Skills Development Council of Canada diploma in any of our skills and trainings enables you to assess some of the job opportunities overseas and equally facilitates the speed of your getting your visas. So it is very important that you pay attention, because I'm going to use a rather an unusual method today in explaining what it means to develop your productivity. And for those of you who are Christians who read the Bible, you will appreciate the lesson more, because I'm going to lift the theme of today's topic from the Bible. So I title it From Prodigality to Productivity. From prodigality to productivity. My name is Henry Ndoka Awurego. I serve as the Director General of the Scholars Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And so, as part of our ongoing mission to provide professional on-demand skills for people who understand where the world is now, of course, you know the world is no longer interested in your certificate. The world is interested in your skills. The marketplace doesn't ask you how many degrees you have. The marketplace will only ask you what you can do and do very well. And so that is why this collaboration between the Scholars Chamber of Commerce and the Skills Development Council of Canada is of very, very crucial importance. And my presentation today, like I said, is going to summarize the productivity development such that anybody who follows from the beginning to the end would have been qualified to obtain the diploma in productivity development. So looking at this topic, from prodigality to productivity, let me say that you can also retitle it from wealth, or rather not from wealth, but from waste to wealth. I hope you understand that. You can also retitle it from consumption to production. Okay? Or from economic security to economic freedom. So any of those titles that you may choose can best explain what we are about to say. The word prodigality, looking at the title, prodigality to productivity. The word prodigality oftentimes happens to be misunderstood. Some think it is for sinners. Some think it is for those who are not, living a good life. But there are people who are living very good life who are also prodigals. And it is important to look at the story, the parable of the prodigal son, to understand the actual meaning of the word prodigality. Simply put, the word prodigality means wasteful spending. When somebody is wasting resources that could have been used for something very important to do things that are not important, we say that that person is prodigal. So it doesn't matter the title and the office you occupy. We can have prodigal president, prodigal governor, prodigal bishop, prodigal reverend father, prodigal pastor. Name them. There are prodigal civil servants, prodigal teachers. And so anytime you waste time, opportunities, resources, you are termed or known as prodigal. And so when we look at productivity development, we are simply saying how to avoid prodigality and achieve productivity. How to avoid prodigality and achieve productivity. Looking at that story of the prodigal son, in the book of Luke, chapter 15, verse number 11 to 32, we heard the story of a man that had two sons. The younger one rose up one day and asked his father to, or demanded from his father, the portion that belongs to him, that the assets be shared, the investments, all of them, the estates, be divided so that he can take his own portion. And there is something very good about that young man. That young man had the capacity to understand who he was. He knew his entitlement. There are people who live in this life with titles but lack entitlement. This young man had entitlement above title. He was not just ready to answer the son of a rich man, he equally wanted to have his entitlement. And so anytime you want to increase your productivity, you must understand who you are. You must also understand the title you carry, whose son you are, what potentials you carry, what and what belongs to you. And when you know that, you'll be able to define your entitlement. That was exactly what the young man did. And he had a very wonderful marketing capacity, because it is not easy to tell a man of the caliber of his father to divide his wealth and the man will agree. If you say it was easy, you can go and try. Tell your father or tell anybody within that kind of relationship with you that you want to take the portion that belongs to you, and see what will be the response. So that is how you know the quality that, which we are all positive qualities. However, we will look at where the problem that led to the prodigality came, and that will take us to the T's. We have always talked about the 12 T's. T number 1, T number 1 is training. T number 2 is technology. T number 3 is tool. T number 4 is technique. T number 5 is trading. T number 6 is tasks. T number 7 is timing. T number 8 is trends. T number 9 is targets. T number 10 is travel stroke tourism. T number 11 is T number 11, I hope I've not forgotten. Team. Finally, T number 12, turnover. These are the T's, and we are going to look at how these T's were misused by the prodigal son. Because these 12 T's give capacity for wealth creation. Capacity for wealth creation. And so this young man lacked the capacity to use those resources to create wealth because he misused or abused the T's that we have mentioned. And that's exactly what happens in our country today. I want to know, I want to believe that you know that in our country today, resources that ought to have produced massive prosperities for the citizens are being wasted and leading to so many destructive operations. I tell you what, where you have the oil deposits, you have the Niger Delta militants. You have high level of insecurity. In Zamfara State, where you have gold deposits, you have insecurity, you have instability, you have a whole lot of vices going on because we are prodigal. Our leaders are prodigal. We don't know how to use resources for productivity. And that is why we are still a third world nation. That is why we are still living in consumption instead of production. And that's the anomaly that productivity development course tends to correct. Trying to teach you that you must go for training. The prodigal son did not allow the father to train him. He left the father. He also lacked technology. If he had undergone this training, in the process of training, there would have been technology transfer. And in the process of transferring technology, he would have gotten the adequate tool for running the father's business. And when you have the tool, the techniques would have followed. And then he would have gone into trading. And that trading would have been the right trading, not the type that he engaged in. The type he engaged in was more of spending without investing. buying liabilities and selling assets. You know, a lot of people don't understand the difference between liabilities and assets. A liability is anything that takes money away from your pocket. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket. That's a layman definition of liability. I don't want to bug you with, I'm not an accountant, and so, but the accountants have their way of defining. But take it from me now that an asset puts money in your pocket, liabilities take money away from your pocket. And it may shock you today that even the house you are building in the village may turn out to be a liability and not an asset. You know, some people will tell you that their car is a liability while a house is an asset. You know, it depends on who is handling it. The car can be a liability to somebody, but an asset to another person. Likewise, a house can be a liability to somebody and an asset to another person. So it is always important to check how much money are those things you are buying, those things you are spending on, how much are they putting into your pocket, into your bank account, and how much are those things you're buying or investing on taking away from you. That is how you know whether you have assets or liabilities. So trading is very important, and everybody must become a trader. Of course, I've always defined trading as exchange of values. So there's nothing like I'm not a trader. Everybody is a trader. Whenever you exchange what you have to get what you need, you are trading. So, but you need to understand whether you are trading the right kind of trade or you are in a very wrong type of trade. The prodigal son engaged in the kind of trade he engaged in, and that led to the kind of tasks that he was involved in, frivolous tasks, you know, wasteful tasks, and he misused his time. He misused a whole lot of his time, and he followed the wrong trend. You see, all of this can be corrected. He followed the wrong trend, he had the wrong target, and he traveled to a far country. So, you know, all of these are good things, but he misused them. The Bible says he traveled to a far country, and he traveled to a wrong location. And how you will know that that was a wrong location was that when he exhausted all that he had, he faced famine in that place. So he didn't know that he was going to a land that will be hit with famine. And so that was a wrong travel. And he also had the wrong team, who were his advisors, friends, associates. They didn't advise him well. And finally, he had zero turnover. There was no profit. He had bad market. He encountered a very terrible hard time. And of course, we saw how the story changed. Okay? But as the story changed, I want to say that he also had a wonderful revival and recovery quality, which most of us don't have today. There are people who have engaged themselves in wrong businesses and they are ashamed of themselves to the point that they are not even able to come out of the wrong business. That's not supposed to be. You have to know when to turn back. The prodigal son knew when to turn around, redirect, realign, and readjust. And the Bible said that he went and got for himself a job, and that job was a terrible one, but he chose that job because that was the only thing that was available. And you see a very good quality of this young man there also. He had the capacity to package his CV. He had the capacity to humbly apply. You know, some people cannot humbly apply. You know, yeah, we know you are a businessman, but the time comes when you need to go and work for somebody. The time comes when you need to go and serve. Okay? So, where everybody is aiming to be his or her own boss, but a time comes when you ought to serve another man. That was what he did. And his wage was a terrible wage. He chose a job that the only wage he was qualified to get as at that time was to eat the remainder of the food that swine or pigs, left over. So that was the story of the prodigal son. And finally, he got himself that job, did it for a time, and he came to his senses. One day, he decided to return back to the father, which is also another good quality that so many people fail to also imbibe. He had the capacity to change his job. He equally had the capacity to return back to base. And returning back to base was not an easy decision. This is somebody that took half of the father's investments, wasted all, disobeyed the father, ran away from the father. But he came to himself and decided to return back to the father. And he told himself that he was going to tell the father, look, I'm not worthy. I've sinned against you. Please take me back. Don't even count me as one of your sons, but take me as one of these servants. Because he had already realized that the servants eat better than him. With the condition he was, the least servant in his father's house was richer than him. So he made that very, very expensive decision to go back. Whatever will be, let it be. He was ready to become a servant in his father's house. And that's a wonderful decision, a wonderful quality that anybody who is aiming at developing productivity must have. The quality of going back to base, the quality of going back to the drawing board to know where the problem, where the leakage is coming from. And so the prodigal son came back to his father, and you know the story very well. As he was still along the road, the father saw him from afar and came and embraced him. And that was how he left prodigality and became productive. I'm very sure that that guy learned in a very, very bitter way, in a very, very hard way. I don't wish anybody to pass through that process, but in case you are passing through that kind of process, you ought to also learn from the prodigal son to see how to return, to readjust, to realign, and to do this final thing I'm going to say with one sentence, which is the summary of what the prodigal son did. And that summary contains my 12 P's. The 12 P's are in this sentence: proper planning and previous preparation, packaging, and positioning prevents poor performance and promotes productivity for prosperity. That's the summary of what he did. In the first instance, when he chose to take the portion of his father's wealth and turn the wealth to waste, he planned, but it was not a proper planning. So I want you to understand why proper. So not all planning are proper. A lot of people are not even planning at all before we even talk about proper planning. And the wise man said, if you fail to plan, you have planned to fail. But when you are planning, the planning must be proper. After properly planning, you prepare yourself previously. One of the greatest tragedy of our leadership in these African nations is the fact that our leaders, or let me put it this way, most of our leaders wait for opportunities before preparation. But naturally and divinely orchestrated way of doing it entails that you ought to prepare and wait for opportunity. An American president once said that, I think that was Abraham Lincoln. He said, "I will prepare myself and my time shall come." Here we are talking about, is my turn. Is my turn to rule. Is my turn to become this, to become that. But how prepared? That's where the problem lies. Apart from preparation, you must package yourself. That's why we are promoting the diploma certificates from the Skill Development Council of Canada, because by the time you have that international certification, you have packaged yourself. And then the Scholars Chamber of Commerce and every other platform that you belong to will now position you by referring you to where you should work, where you should serve, where you should do business, and so on and so forth. That's the meaning of positioning. Because you may be prepared and packaged. If you are not well positioned, nobody will know that you exist. And so when you do all of this, it will prevent, of course, prevention is better than cure. It will prevent poor performance. I like the word poor, and I normally take it as an abbreviation. That word poor means passing over opportunities repeatedly. Passing over opportunities repeatedly. You don't have to be passing over opportunities repeatedly. And if you must disobey that law of passing over opportunities repeatedly, you have to properly plan, previously prepare, package, and position so that you can prevent poor performance. And when you have prevented poor performance, you will promote productivity. Productivity is a word that is made up of two words: product and activity. So what it means is that there is a difference between activity and productivity. Unfortunately, what most of us are engaged in are more of activities and less of productivities. So how do you know productivity? Productivity is the fact that your activity has generated result in form of product, in form of services, in form of outcomes. That is what we call productivity. And so when you use very less effort to generate a lot of results, then you have high productivity. But when you spend so much effort, so much money, so much time, and come up with very little result, then we say you have low productivity. And so, how do you achieve all of this? You have seen this story, and you have seen my illustrations. You can now take away from it that there is need for planning for productivity. There is need for goal setting for productivity. There's a difference between a plan and a goal. A plan is what you want to achieve. A goal is what you want to achieve. A plan is how to achieve it. A goal is what you want to achieve. A plan is how to achieve it. And so you need to understand that for productivity to be real, you must plan, you must set goals. And when you do that, there must be tasks. You must understand what are the activities that will enable you, daily activities and all of that. And that's what the manual here will guide you to do. I want to thank you for listening, and remember, proper planning prevents poor performance. And if you amplify it, you say proper planning and previous preparation, packaging and positioning will prevent poor performance and promote productivity for prosperity. When you put these 12 P's together, we say you have the credibility for wealth creation. Remember that there were 12 T's also: training, technology, tools, techniques, trading, tasks, timing, trends, target, travel, tourism, team, and turnover. When all of them are mixed together, you have the capacity for wealth creation. By the time you answer the questions that will be given to you, you are qualified for your diploma in productivity development, courtesy of the Skills Development Council of Canada. So call the number 08050388388. I repeat, 08050388388. When you call that number, your questions will be sent to you, and then the details of payment for the certificate will also be given to you. And by the time you make the payment and submit the questions, your diploma from Canada will arrive. God bless you.